can be no doubt that something horrible happened.
This is a very neglected area of the world as far as deep and ancient archaeology goes.
The mysteries of the Grand Canyon have captivated researchers for decades, from the discovery of giant mummies and colossal bones to Egyptian-style artifacts unearthed in its depths. But one lingering question persists. Why is 90% of this iconic natural wonder off-limits? It wasn't until 1919 that Congress officially designated the area as a national park. By then, explorers like G.E. Kincaid were racing against time to uncover its secrets before it was permanently sealed from exploration. Driven by curiosity and the lure of adventure, Kincaid set off along the Colorado River, navigating its rugged waters surrounded by gold, silver, and copper-rich cliffs. Roughly 40 miles upstream from Ilar Crystal Canyon, an unusual sight caught his eye. Strange discolorations in the canyon's towering sediment walls, some 2,000 feet above the river. Intrigued, he secured his boat and began a steep climb toward the source of the odd markings. What Kincaid found defied belief. Hidden beneath a tangle of desert brush was a staircase. Hundreds of intricately carved sandstone steps winding upward to a high ledge. Following this unlikely path, Kincaid arrived at a cavern, its entrance clearly man-made. With flashlight in hand, he ventured inside, only to be greeted by ancient symbols etched into the stone. These markings weren't Native American, nor any language he recognized. They were Egyptian hieroglyphs, unmistakably out of place in the American Southwest. The tunnel stretched deep into the darkness, its walls bearing the marks of expert chiseling. At first, Kincaid thought he might stumble upon a valuable mineral deposit. Instead, he uncovered a marvel of ancient engineering. As he explored further, the cavern revealed a labyrinth of passageways and chambers, all meticulously constructed. One main corridor, about 12 feet wide at the entrance and narrowing to 9 feet, extended for dozens of feet before splitting into branching side passages. These side tunnels led to spacious rooms, some as large as 30 by 40 feet, with oval doorways and ventilation systems that hinted at an advanced understanding of airflow. The walls, carved to perfection and 3.5 feet thick, suggested the work of skilled architects. Ceilings in many rooms rose and converged at central points, creating an awe-inspiring design. As Kincaid delved deeper, he realized he wasn't just inside a simple cavern. He had stumbled upon a massive ancient complex. The chambers and passages, he estimated, could have comfortably housed a population of up to 50,000 people. Whatever civilization had created this hidden city, it was a sophisticated one, leaving behind mysteries that would challenge even the boldest adventurers. As Kincaid explored further into the mysterious underground city, he came across discoveries that seemed straight out of a storybook. Some rooms housed granaries filled with glazed pottery, many still holding seeds that had somehow survived the passage of time. He found evidence of cooking areas, a massive dining hall, and countless ancient artifacts scattered throughout. Carefully, he wrapped a few small metal and ceramic objects to take back for study. But one discovery stood out: a room that appeared to be a metalworking workshop. Tools made of copper were everywhere, suggesting that the people who built this place had mastered an ancient and now lost method of hardening copper. On a bench surrounding the workshop, there were signs of smelting: charcoal, slag, and a mat-like material. These clues hinted at a sophisticated process, though the source of the ore and details of how it was smelted remained a mystery. Despite hours of exploration, Kincaid still couldn't wrap his head around the purpose of the site. Then, he stumbled upon something that made him stop in his tracks: a crypt. Shelves lined the walls, and on them lay rows of mummies, dozens of them. The discovery was staggering. It was clear this place wasn't just a hidden dwelling. It was a massive, ancient city. Realizing he couldn't continue alone, Kincaid decided to get help. He sent his findings, along with some artifacts, to the Smithsonian, describing the site as potentially one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever. The Smithsonian agreed and sent Professor S.A. Jordan, along with a team of about 40 researchers and workers, to investigate further. Once on site, with better lighting and more hands, the team began piecing the puzzle together. They noticed the cave system wasn't random. It was laid out with precision. All the tunnels led to a central chamber, where a massive statue stood. It was unlike anything they expected to find. An enormous figure seated cross-legged, holding a lotus flower or lily in each hand. Its features were strikingly oriental, resembling Buddha, though its exact cultural significance was unclear. Not far from this central chamber was a cross hall stretching several hundred feet, leading to another idol believed to represent the civilization's deity. The design and craftsmanship left everyone in awe. The team started calling the site the Citadel, as its grand scale suggested it was far more than a simple dwelling. It was a city capable of housing tens of thousands of people. With each new find, questions grew. Who built this? How did they master such advanced techniques? And what were their ties to cultures halfway across the world? For Kincaid and the Smithsonian team, the Citadel wasn't just a discovery, it was a mystery that rewrote everything they thought they knew about ancient civilizations. The crypt was one of the most striking discoveries in the entire complex. With better lighting, Kincaid could finally take in all the details. The walls sloped back at a steep angle, about 35 degrees, with shelves carved into the stone to hold the mummies. Each mummy rested on its own tier, and at the head of each was a small bench holding copper cups and fragments of broken swords. Some mummies were encased in clay, while all were wrapped in a bark-like fabric. Kincaid noticed an interesting pattern. The copper cups on the lower shelves were simple and plain, but those on the higher shelves were more refined, with intricate designs. This seemed to suggest that the civilization advanced over time. Another curious detail: every mummy examined was male. There were no women or children here, leading the team to theorize that this section of the complex might have been a barracks for warriors. As Kincaid, Professor Jordan, and the Smithsonian team explored further, it became clear this wasn't just a temple or a refuge for a handful of priests. It was an entire underground city, built to house thousands of men, women, and children. This place wasn't just a shelter. It was a thriving community that had existed for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. But the biggest question still hung over them. Who were these people? By the end of their expedition, they had uncovered hundreds of rooms. Some were empty, but others revealed granaries, living quarters, temples, metalworking shops, and barracks. The artifacts they found were astonishing: swords and shields made of copper, bronze, and a strange gray metal that looked like platinum. They also discovered pottery, cooking tools, small yellow stones called cat's eyes, and large stone tablets covered in hieroglyphics. The hieroglyphics were etched everywhere, on the walls, above doorways, and across the stone tablets. The Smithsonian hoped to decipher them, believing they might hold clues to the people's religious practices. Interestingly, similar markings had been found in southern Arizona, though no one knew what connection they might have. Among the few carvings of animals, one stood out as prehistoric, adding yet another layer of mystery. Despite the wealth of artifacts and inscriptions uncovered in the Citadel, Kincaid and Professor Jordan were no closer to identifying the civilization that had built it. Still, two key conclusions emerged among the researchers. The civilization was far more advanced than the Native American tribes known to have lived in the area over the past few millennia. This ancient society worked with bronze long before the advent of the Bronze Age and displayed an understanding of labor specialization and agriculture far beyond what was expected for its time. These revelations challenged the foundations of mainstream archaeology and anthropology, as no record of such an advanced civilization existing in this region had ever been found. The civilization was not native to the Grand Canyon. The evidence strongly suggested that its people had origins on the other side of the world. The artifacts and architectural techniques pointed to connections with ancient Egypt or Asia, leading the researchers to propose that the citadel's builders were migrants or explorers who had settled in this remote part of North America. Kincaid and Jordan meticulously documented their findings, sending countless boxes of artifacts, along with notebooks filled with drawings and observations, back to the Smithsonian. They posited a groundbreaking theory. An ancient, technologically advanced civilization had existed in the Grand Canyon thousands of years before Native Americans arrived. This society was not only skilled and educated, but also spiritually and culturally sophisticated, with ties to Egypt or Asia. Eager to continue the investigation, Kincaid requested additional resources and a larger team to explore the citadel further and search for more evidence of this lost civilization in the surrounding canyon. However, the request was denied. Then, without explanation, both G.E. Kincaid and Professor S.A. Jordan disappeared without a trace, leaving behind unanswered questions and one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of all time. Nestled in northern Arizona, the Grand Canyon stands as one of the most awe-inspiring natural wonders in the world. Carved over millions of years by the relentless flow of the Colorado River, it's more than just a geological marvel. It's a place of deep spiritual and cultural significance for the Native American tribes that have called this land home for thousands of years. The Hopi, Navajo, Zuni, Apache, and others regard the canyon not just as a landmark, but as a sacred place steeped in myth and history. One of the most fascinating legends comes from Hopi mythology, which claims that the first humans emerged from the Grand Canyon itself. According to their ancient stories, millennia ago, a reptilian race, referred to in popular culture as lizard people, appeared. These beings were said to be shapeshifters, capable of transforming into human form. While the idea of shape-shifting reptilians may seem far-fetched, the tale persists, passed down through generations of oral tradition. Interestingly, similar myths appear in the stories of other Pueblo cultures, such as the Zuni and Acoma. These tribes speak of beings that predated the arrival of humans in the region. While some legends describe reptilian creatures, others tell of giants, beings of immense stature who once roamed the lands. Adding fuel to these myths are rumors of giant skeletons allegedly uncovered in the western United States, though such claims remain shrouded in mystery, with skeptics suggesting evidence has been suppressed. History has already proven that people reached North America long before Columbus. The Vikings, for example, settled in parts of Newfoundland roughly 500 years before the so-called discovery of the New World. Beyond that, growing evidence suggests ancient Chinese explorers may have reached both North and South America even earlier. But reaching the Grand Canyon, a rugged and remote location deep in the heart of the continent, presents an entirely different set of challenges. How could ancient civilizations have navigated such treacherous terrain? And more puzzlingly, if they did make it there, how did they excavate millions of tons of rock to create an underground city like the Citadel? Such an endeavor would require advanced technology, far beyond what most ancient cultures are believed to have possessed. Perhaps the answers lie in the myths themselves. For over 1,000 years, stories have hinted at extraordinary achievements by long-lost civilizations. The journey from Europe or Asia to the Americas thousands of years ago would have been nearly impossible for most. But some intrepid explorers managed to defy the odds. Establishing a presence in the Grand Canyon, however, would require not just determination, but technology and skills capable of reshaping the landscape. The Hopi people share an intriguing story about the Ant People, mysterious beings described as small, pale-skinned, and humanoid with large insect-like eyes. According to their ancient lore, thousands of years ago, a series of cataclysms struck the Earth, endangering the Hopi ancestors. In their time of need, a sky god descended from what they called a moving star, which some interpret as a UFO, and led the Hopi to safety. The Ant People welcomed them into underground caves, protecting them until the danger passed. Once the crisis was over, the sky god returned to the heavens aboard the moving star. A similar tale comes from the Pueblo people, who speak of the Havumasus. These beings, often thought to be otherworldly, were described as humanoid, with golden skin and large eyes. Legends say they lived in a sprawling underground city and traded with distant civilizations. The Havumasus were also known for their advanced technology, including silver tubes that could emit lightning, instantly striking down their enemies. Even more astonishing were their silver canoes in the sky, flying crafts that hummed as they soared like eagles, swift and agile. Across the globe, many ancient cultures tell stories of a great flood that wiped out civilizations, raising sea levels, and possibly even sinking entire continents like Atlantis. These myths often share a common thread. After the waters receded, godlike beings descended from the skies, bringing the knowledge of writing, agriculture, and astronomy to humanity. Could the mysterious city rumored to exist in the Grand Canyon be tied to this ancient period? If so, why would such a discovery remain hidden? The tale of Kincaid's Cave and the so-called Citadel first came to light in two Phoenix Gazette articles published in 1909. While mainstream scholars have long dismissed the story as a hoax designed to sell newspapers, early 20th century clickbait, many believe it to be true and accuse the Smithsonian Institution of suppressing the evidence. Official accounts deny the existence of Kincaid's Cave entirely, claiming there's nothing to see. The entrance, if it exists, is almost impossible to access, located over 1,400 feet down a steep canyon wall on government-protected land. Strict trespassing laws keep the area off-limits to the public, supposedly to prevent relic hunters or tourists from interfering with potential discoveries. Efforts to locate Kincaid's legendary cave and the Citadel have continued for over a century, despite significant challenges and government restrictions. Any attempt to visit the purported site is likely to be met with resistance, whether to protect archaeological finds or, as some speculate, to keep the truth hidden. Even Kincaid himself seemed to discourage further exploration, yet determined researchers like Jerry and Kathy Wills have refused to abandon the mystery. Jerry and Kathy have spent years researching the case, focusing on the area where Kincaid reportedly made his discovery. After extensive investigations, they identified a site containing artifacts from the same era as Kincaid's expedition. They believe the entrance to the underground city lies along the canyon wall beneath this location. However, accessing the area is nearly impossible due to federal regulations that strictly limit exploration. The Grand Canyon contains roughly 1,000 caves, but only around 30 have been mapped, and many are sealed off. Some adventurers are willing to risk fines, imprisonment, or even personal safety to continue the search. Many caves have been blocked with steel gates, officially to protect wildlife like bats. But this explanation has fueled skepticism as these closures add to the sense of mystery surrounding the region. When Jerry and Kathy's team attempted to investigate, they noticed an unmarked plane circling above, an unsettling sight, given that the area is a no-fly zone. Jerry interpreted this as a warning and reluctantly called off the expedition. Similarly, another group of explorers approached the site from below, retracing Kincaid's original path. As they neared their target, they encountered a black Apache helicopter, a military-grade aircraft far from typical in such settings. These encounters, combined with reports of cement platforms and hardware supposedly used for structural reinforcements, have deepened suspicions about what might be hidden there. Adding another layer of intrigue, the Grand Canyon is home to rock formations with names like Isis Temple, Tower of Set, Horus, and the Khup's Pyramid. These names, referencing Egyptian and Hindu mythology, align with myths of gods aiding humanity after a great flood. The government attributes the naming of these features to coincidence, yet skeptics argue otherwise, pointing to the thematic alignment with the legends surrounding Kincaid's cave. David Hatcher Childress, a French author renowned for exploring ancient mysteries, is a vocal critic of how the U.S. government and institutions like the Smithsonian handle archaeological discoveries. Drawing comparisons to the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, Childress suggests there's an intentional effort to suppress significant findings from the Americas. He traces this alleged cover-up to 1881, when John Wesley Powell, a prominent geologist, appointed Cyrus Thomas as the director of the Eastern Mound Division of the Smithsonian Bureau of Ethnology. At the time, Thomas supported diffusionism, the idea that civilizations across the globe exchanged culture and technology over vast distances. This stood in stark contrast to the Smithsonian's policy of isolationism, which argued that most civilizations developed independently, particularly those separated by oceans. This perspective denied any meaningful connection between advanced societies in the Americas, such as the mound builders of the Ohio and Mississippi valleys, and cultures like the Aztec or Maya. Critics argue that this stance ignores the Mississippi River's expansive network, which logically facilitated trade and interaction across North America. Evidence from ancient mound excavations in the Midwest challenges the Smithsonian's isolationist narrative. These mounds reveal sophisticated cultures with cities that, in some cases, surpassed contemporary European settlements in scale and complexity. Even more puzzling are the burials of extraordinarily tall individuals, with some skeletons measuring 7 to 8 feet. In the 1930s, excavations at the Spiro Mounds uncovered these remains, dwarfing the average male height of 5 feet 6 inches. Yet these skeletons have mysteriously vanished. Similar cases abound. In 1892, Frank Burns unearthed 7.5-foot stone coffins in Alabama. Records show they were sent to the Smithsonian, but when researcher Frederick Ewell inquired about them years later, the Smithsonian claimed they couldn't locate the specimens. Later, they admitted the coffins were in a contaminated warehouse, making them inaccessible. During World War II, construction crews in Alaska reportedly discovered a mound containing giant human remains, a finding consistent with similar reports from Mexico City to Alaska. Time and again, the Smithsonian intervened, and the stories faded from public discourse. Some believe this systematic suppression is not just about protecting the integrity of archaeology, but hiding evidence of a highly advanced, prehistoric race in North America. These so-called skeletons in the closet could be literal, tall beings who built complex cities long before Native American tribes arrived. Such discoveries, if confirmed, would upend mainstream narratives about early human history and migration patterns. While many dismiss these claims as fringe conspiracies, Native American tribes like the Hopi hold a different perspective. According to Hopi legend, the first people emerged from the Grand Canyon and sent a messenger to the Temple of the Sun to seek a blessing of peace. This messenger has yet to return. Even today, Hopi elders are said to gather at sundown, looking westward toward the setting sun, waiting for his arrival. They believe that when the messenger returns, the ancient lands will be restored to their rightful inhabitants. But given the U.S. government's long history of appropriating indigenous lands, one must wonder, would they ever relinquish such a treasure? Especially if it holds secrets that challenge the very fabric of accepted history? The answer remains as elusive as the legends themselves.